Hi, so this is a video I probably should have done for a while. So it is on Pleco. So this is the basics of Plecos I'm going to talk about. And whereas generally I say Plecos are the whole of Loricardiae, all 950, 850, depends on your definition, species. So it is a large one, a large family. If you compare to primates, primates have anywhere between 150 to 350 species. So this is a massive group of fish. And I'm going to generally refer to Hypostominae, which is the subfamily, that generally what you consider mostly plecos. So first I must separate, there are fish sold as plecos which are not siluriforms, they are not catfishes, and they are certainly not Loricardiae. So these are generally, so actually the common name, probably one that groups those ones would be the hillstream loaches. So these are usually sold as cold water pleco. You can look at them close up and they do have small scales, so that separates them out from catfish, so they cannot be Loricardiae. Generally this group is Suellia, is included in the genus Suellia, Buffortia, Gastromyzon, Pseudogastromyzon. So Loricardiae, Hypostominae are only found in South America in their native range. They are invasive in other places, such as North America and Southeast Asia, and I think bits of Europe there has been reports. So how are they identified? According to Nathan Lujan on his sort of lab website, which is quite a good way of defining them, is by the ventral oral disc. So on their underside, I wish one of mine was sitting up against the glass at the moment, but they have that mouth which looks like large lips, and that's what sucks to the side. In Hypostominae, not in quite a few members of Loricardiae and etc. really. And I must say, Loricardiae is another subfamily to Loricardiae, so don't get the two mixed up. They also have a body covered in bony plates. These are not scales because, as I think I've said before, catfishes do not have scales. These are bony plates made of, I believe, the same thing as bone, as are these external teeth known as odontos. And these are present, can be covered the whole body of the fish, and they generally do. But they tend to be larger depends on the actual species, the genus, larger in males. But it really varies. Some it can be the same. And they do have, in some genuses, a vertebral one, so on their behind the gill plates, they will have ones which will kind of move in and out. And I don't think I have any video of that really of fish I can show of that. So you might have seen them and you might think they're great for cleaning your tank. First off, I should say they are not. I've done a video on this and they will not clean your tank because they produce a hell of a lot of waste. This is my tank with practically all Ancistrus and a Ancistrus xanthellus. And I get algae. Not so much at the moment. I don't know what I've done not to get it, but usually on my tanks I get diatoms growing. So generally, although some will eat algae, they prefer the softer algae that grow more in ulfrich. Generally they're not going to be able to scrape that hard. If you need a blade to scrape, generally I wouldn't really. Maybe some Panaques or Panaqolus might be able to get through it, but they're not going to clean your tank. Why would they? It's not very nutritious. They will want other stuff in their diet too. And the most important thing really is to focus on what diet that species you want needs. And I will only ever recommend you get Hypostomae, a pleco, if you really like them, if you want them as a fish, not to clean your tank, because they do live a long time as well. So you're looking 15 years minimum. So this is longer than a dog really. And their setups aren't the easiest or cheapest in general. So they're not really great unless you really like them, and that's why I adore them. And there's so many people that do just like Loricardiae, Hypostomae, and that's what they specialize in. So you can do it. You don't need to have the same tank as everyone else. So the first thing I will go over is probably diet, because this is the most important thing. there is a heck of a lot different of diets for Hypostominae. I've made a whole video on that and you should check it out and then go research that species you want or the genus. But even within species within the same genus, there will be a range of different diets. So, for example, this tank is just Ancistrus. I have Ancistrus macropithalamus, Ancistrus ranunculus, Ancistrus L255, Ancistrus L359. These are not your typical Ancistrus. I also have in another tank Ancistrus CF cirrhosis. These Ancistrus prefer a very much more omnivorous diet, which is more carnivorous than your typical Ancistrus, your starlights, your Ancistrus CF cirrhosis, which is the common bristlenose. So even within the same genus, there's a lot of difference. And then looking at the differences between genus, there are carnivorous species. There are ones that do actually kind of predate a little bit on shrimp. And there have been reports of people seeing there's pounce on shrimp, or they're dwindling numbers with the addition of Hypostominae. Well, depends, especially Hypancistrus, Pseudoacanthus. So it's best to research that and watch the video if you want to, or just further research on places like Panaque catfish, Scott cat, and there's quite a few German websites there, L Wells, because Wells, WELSE is a German name for catfish. So so they will need their own diet as well. I always recommend either EBO or Repashy, or even better, both. Vitalis Pleco pellets are good as well, but I would always go with the diet that is meant, the diet that you can aim most at that species you have. I do not use Repashy morning wood, because if you look at the science journals for Panaqolus, which I do have tank of Panaqolus, and Panaques, and probably Hypostomus cotyledon, they cannot digest cellulose, so what's the point of buying something with cellulose in the thing? But otherwise, Repashy is really good, and it does a whole range of diets for your different kinds of Lorocardae, and as does EBO. EBO, I believe, is specialised towards Lorocardae. So generally I'm just saying research diet. So next thing is tank size. Oh god, this is a difficult one because it depends on how much filtration you've got, the species you've got, the aggression levels. It's like you kind of need an intuition to know almost, but I would certainly look up the size of the fish and really sort of visualise whether it would do well in that footprint of tank, whether they do need caves a lot. They are not as active as some other species that are active Hypostomae, to bear in mind really. But they will just sit in the caves, and that's what they spend most of the time doing. But they still need space to move. So I wouldn't overstock at all. And that leads to the main thing, which really is water changes with. If you want to have a fish that produces a lot of waste in a smaller tank, you're going to have to do more water changes. And if you want to keep that tank for the lifespan of the fish, and some of these fish do get big, by the way, I would always bear that in mind, and also the activity levels. Pterygoplichthys, Gibiceps, your Gibiceps Pleco is extremely active, so also bear that in mind. But also water changes. Do you want to be doing 75% water changes twice a week? Do you want to be doing 50% twice, 3 times a week? Maybe not. So maybe consider that in how much you're stocking. And that kind of does lead on to filtration as well, which is I would always go with externals unless you've got a power head and are going to match it with water changer. Well, you can't match it with water changes filtration, but I would always, you can. It's difficult to say, but you want the flow rate. The flow rate is the most important thing. So big externals, a sumps with a lot of flow on them would be epic. like a big turnover. And depends on the species you've got. You might want to choose what filter depending on that. Because if you've got a species or genus that produces a lot of high fine waste, then you kind of want one which maybe you have that sort of pre-filter, either a wet-dry pre-filter like the Eheim Professional 4 Plus series, or you want something that has that mechanical filtration first so it doesn't block up the media. But it's worth considering that they are a very technical group in a way, and you really have to pay attention because they're not easy. And the flow rate's important. So I would, if you had a 300 litre tank, I wouldn't get the 306. I wouldn't even get probably the 406 fluvial. I'd probably go for FX or double up or triple up even. But generally, I would say you want more than you'd expect, and the more the better. You can go with sponge filters, of course, but you do want to be cleaning those sponges so they don't get clogged. And you also probably want a power head just to get that flow rate. Sorry, my phone's going off. So next thing, tank mates. Look at water perimeters. Rift Valley cichlids do not work. None of them do. They require hard water. Lorocardae always requires soft water, soft acidic water. Panaqolus albivermis, you could get it. You can't get away with because it has really ornate fins and they will get nipped. They are slow feeders. They will not outcompete a lot of fish to get to food. They will not even compete well. Flow rate. Pleco are not suitable with Siamese fighters. Siamese fighters need next to no flow. Plecos need a lot. So that fighter is either going to be stuck at one corner or it's just not going to work. And you can't do variable flow rates because it's just doesn't work, and even plaquettes won't cope that well. So that's sort of like other fish. Cichlids from South America, Central America are hit and miss. You don't want anything that will pick them up. And goldfish for the same, well, other than goldfish out competing for food, they will see the food and they will get it and they will pick it up and move it around. I have seen, and I won't post the photo, I have it saved on my phone, but I have seen goldfish actually pick up and try to eat Lorocardae, the smaller ones you generally keep you would keep in a cooler water. Hi Paul. Sorry about that. So yeah, I was talking about goldfish. They are not suitable. If it does get stuck in the mouth, you're not going to get it out. There's no chance of getting, especially the Hypostominae, out alive, because once they've locked those pectoral fins, you're not going to be able to get it out. And that is really risky for the goldfish as well. And goldfish do get big. They're not that big. They're more, wow. My largest was probably, I think, that big body size. So, and then add on the tail, because she was a fancy and she was insanely big. But that was my largest. I've seen commons bigger. So, and the next thing is also consider temperature. And I should have talked about that, and I'll talk about it in a second. Corridors are only suitable with certain Hypostominae. Consider temperature, because a lot of corridors prefer lower temperatures. This makes them maybe not always the best with goldfish. I mean, with plecos, they are not suitable with goldfish for the same reasons, really. But you're going to stress out one of the fish, so you're putting one of the fish out of their ranges. And the temperatures required for plecos vary depending on the species. Ancistrus, CF cirrhosis, anywhere sort of between, I would say, long term 23 to around 26, 27. But short term, you could push that a bit lower or a bit higher. I mean, short term, like a gradual change, because seasonal variation is always good. Other species like Hypancistrus, especially, they require around 28 degrees. So this makes them very difficult for tank mates, really. And that makes them unsuitable with a lot of corridors, excluding sort of corridor stirbi. And Peckoltia can kind of be in the middle. It really varies. So on to sort of pH, GH, perimeters. Of course, you want nitrates, ammonia, nitrites. I can't remember which one I said, but the nitrogen compounds in the water, you want them as low as possible. Well, you want ammonia 0, nitrites 0, nitrates as 0 as possible, but that's generally with any fish, that's the same thing. And then on to sort of your GH, pH. I don't look at GH because I look at TDS, and pH generally won't change unless your tap water company is really messing with it, or you're using any sort of rocks, minerals that could really do it. But it shouldn't be dropping unless you're messing with your tank, and you really shouldn't be doing that. So TDS is probably the most important. I would always aim for around between 100 and 150. If you're breeding them, you could probably dip it. And TDS is difficult to do. Most tap water comes out, I would say, anywhere between 150 to about 400. I've seen it. So mine comes out at about 130. I live in a very soft water area. Soft water, acidic water, which is brilliant. So I don't actually need to use RO anymore. But generally you want as low as, you want it lower. You don't, and the only way to do that is RO. So if you have to use RO, then do use RO. It's not as difficult as it looks. And I would recommend an RO machine unless you're on a meter. Well water, I would always just test the water perimeters. So I think that's it. They are territorial, generally of their own kind. There are a few species which are gregarious or more forgiving with each other. You want loads of caves. Your tank doesn't have to look nice. A nice tank doesn't mean it's a good setup for the fish. And generally they're not always. So I have loads of caves and I'm getting more. And that's the most important thing, hiding places and everywhere. Like, if you can make more, because it will give them places to hide from each other. And if they're if they're bothering each other, they will generally have different caves to go into where they won't bother each other. And they can do damage, they can inflict damage. It doesn't matter what sex they are. Males would fight males, males will fight females, females will fight males. Females will fight females. They don't care generally. It depends, not all are so aggressive. And I think finally I should probably talk about where's best to get them. And sort of prices. So I say you can pay anything you want because they could go from £1, 50p for a baby common bristlenose, anywhere up to £2,000 for Hypostomus luteus, but you could probably pay more for rarer species. There is no limit really. And where would I recommend get them? I've got ones from Pier, Maidenhead Aquatics, Springs Aquatic. I've got fish from loads of different stores. And generally you want to look for fish that have their belly isn't sunken. That is a massive risk you're taking and you'll probably have to worm it. And also make sure that it doesn't have any damage. Don't just pity buy because could be an expensive buy that might not make it. And generally, that's it. I can answer any questions, and I've probably missed out loads because I haven't really planned this well. I haven't had actually any time. I'll probably just say, if you don't want to hear about my sort of personal life almost, then you can switch off now. I'm not going to. So basically I am at uni and I also work. I technically am busy 7 days a week. And I'm at uni, it really varies because I'm doing a research master's, and it depends when when I have stuff to do almost, which is a lot. And I do not actually have any time really off. This I only had a day off to pick up something, and then I had to catch up. And I have to use, like, I spend a lot of time working on set art studios and stuff like that, which takes so much time because it's so difficult. Anyway, I think I've talked enough, especially about myself. There's nothing interesting to talk about really there. So, and I don't plan on doing any more fish purchases at all. I do want inverts, like terrestrial inverts, but I need the space. I do have African land snails, Phyllocus snails, and I do want to kind of do a video showing off my Western hognose, and I really want to do up her Viv, but I just have to, well, her Viv's fine as it is, I just want to make it look nicer in a way. Anyway, thank you for watching.